Hey, everybody, we're back again. We're taking a look at the 1970s movies. We've been waiting a long time to do it. We sort of went in reverse. This will be our fifth decade that we've done, 50 years of movies. So we started with the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and for good measure, we're going back and doing the 1970s because I think, in all three of our opinions, it may be the best decade, flat out. And it is a turning point in cinema as far as I'm concerned. Old Hollywood, you have a new rating system coming in, harsher material, more violent, sexy language. All that stuff came into play in the 1970s. New voices, some strong directors, Coppola, Scorsese, Altman, Spielberg, Lucas, Friedkin, De Palma, Bogdanovich. All these names would make their mark in that decade. And, of course, some new rising stars. We're talking about Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Dustin Hoffman, Jack Nicholson, a holdover from the 60s, but really a 70s actor. Gene Hackman, Robert Duvall, the list goes on. Fantastic decade. I'm here with Brian, AYBL Maine, my usual partners. Sean, aka Doc, is with us. And we're happy to be together to give you a look at the 1970s. Today, we're going to start out with action adventure. And our first guy up on the block is Doc. Top five, by the way.
Top five. Top five action adventure for the 70s. Rich, you did a good summary there of what the 70s actually encapsulates really for the whole decade, really. It's there's a whole bunch of great things going on in the 70s in movies, man. And I think when we go through our list over the next little while, people are going to see that, man. It's pretty fantastic stuff that actually happened in the 70s.
And it's a drastic change from previous decades. The 50s were racing quiet.
Yeah.
And the 60s sort of turned, at the end of the 60s, things started happening. But the 70s, the whole decade.
I would argue that if we took our list at the end of it and we said you couldn't choose any of the movies that we chose, somebody could still come up with a really good list.
I absolutely agree.
I bet you're right.
Could do it easily.
Yeah.
No question.
I'm sure we've got tons on all of our lists throughout all these categories that are going to float. So I'll just jump in. We'll start off with number 5, action adventure of the 70s for me. So obviously all these lists are quite personal in some senses too. So we'll see how this goes. My number 5, I'm going to like a war action adventure kind of movie. So go figure I went there, but I'm going Wild Geese with number 5. I liked Wild Geese when I first watched it and years ago, and I revisited doing this, and I've seen it maybe once or twice, even in between those times and stuff like that. But I always remember liking the movie, liking Richard Burton in the movie, and Richard Harris and Roger Moore. So it's I almost consider it. It takes bits and pieces from different things, especially out of the 60s. It takes some Dirty Dozen kind of feels to it, or some even Great Escape kind of feels to it. But if you want the best summary of what this movie is, it just encapsulates, this is the A-Team before the A-Team is what this is. Okay, it's with some twists and some turns and some backstabbing that goes on. It's a great little action adventure movie that it's two sides to a story in this one, and I think it's really well done. And I really like Richard Burton too. So that's my number 5.
Good.
My number 4, probably the most expensive action adventure movie, maybe of the decade, maybe, I don't know. Well, definitely the first one, that's for sure. Towering Inferno is my number 4. You get Newman, you got Steve McQueen, you got a cast of thousands in here. This is William Holden's in this, you got Robert Wagner, you got Faye Dunaway, you've got everybody who was not busy for 2 months in Hollywood was on this movie. So just a fantastic movie, actually, for an action adventure movie for the time, biggest budget movie of the time. Actually took 2 studios to make it because it was too expensive for one studio. I can't remember who it was. It's Warner Brothers and somebody else, maybe 20th Century, I think. Towering Inferno, a lot going on there, and I'm trying to remember, is it Fred Astaire? Fred Astaire is even in there.
Fred Astaire.
There's even scenes in this movie that are happening where the actors don't even know what's happening and stuff like that, if you ever watched the making of it. So I've watched that before. So it's actually really well done. skyscraper movie before skyscraper, man. So
It may be the best of the disaster films in a way too. I think.
I've got to think it is.
I
yeah,
think it is too.
there was some right around that time. Earthquake came out. Yeah, the Poseidon Adventure just before and everything else. But Towering Inferno, I think, is the one
This
that
is the
stands
one.
out to me.
This is much better than those. I like Poseidon a little bit. I thought Earthquake was terrible, and some of the other Roller Coaster.
Flood was awful.
Roller Coaster, nah, pass.
Oh,
Hard
yeah.
pass. Yeah,
all bad.
yeah, all bad.
Towering Inferno, good, and what a cast! Unbelievable cast.
Fantastic cast.
Yeah.
It's actually funny that they both, the only way they got McQueen into that movies was if they had somebody of his ilk that could play the architect of the building who was going to play that character, because they wanted him to do it originally. And he said, no, he wants to play the fire chief. And they ended up getting Newman as the architect. And they both got paid $1 million.
I remember that dress that Faye Dunaway had, like that long V-neck.
That's right.
I was like 17 when it came out, and it caught my eye. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure it did. That's a low rider there, right?
It caught both eyes, to be frank. All right, cool.
2 reasons. Number 3, going to like a different kind of action adventure, but I'm going to The Warriors. This is a personal favorite for me. I just, what do you want, man? This is a cult classic in some senses.
For sure.
The Warriors, all these gangs, the one leader trying to bring the gangs together, Cyrus, and what actually happens. And one guy kills Cyrus and blames the Warriors for it. And everyone's out to get to the Warriors before they make it back to, I'm trying to remember where they're making it back to now. Stony, I think. Where are they going? Coney Beach.
Yeah. It's a cool movie. It's unlike any
cool
other
flick,
movie.
man.
It's such a unique film. I really enjoyed that movie
Right.
too.
Yeah, it's great. And just different scenes that happen in that. I mean, all the different kind of gangs out there, the baseball guys, the roller skating
Baseball
guy,
guys, right.
Baseball bats are great.
And things that are stand out to you if you're our age, let's say, or in our ballpark, you won't forget these guys anyway. So just a fun, good action adventure movie for definitely the 70s, man. I'm happy it came out then too. Number 2, I'm going with the original of the series. I'm going with Mad Max. I think sometimes this movie gets overlooked inside the series over Road Warrior sometimes.
Yeah.
Mad Max is a fantastic movie, man.
Yeah.
It's a great start to the series. And, let's face it, he's not really Mad Max until like the 3rd act of that movie, and just how we got there is one thing, but it's the beginning of what actually happens after. Road Warrior is fantastic too. Don't get me wrong. I love it. So, but you can see where the story develops from there on the gasoline and how things are going and all these things. He's a cop that, his wife and his kid and everything else. And then George Miller does a really good job. You can see that George Miller's, you know his movies when you see it. I can just tell you that, man. It's just, they're kind of captivating in some senses. The cinematography in these and the way it's shot and, sped up, even like with the cars coming at you and all the motorcycles. And it's fantastic. I think it's a great action adventure for the 70s, man. My number 1, it's one of my all-time favorites, man. It's Superman.
Nice.
Nice. All right.
I can't get around it. It'll always be one of my all-time favorite movies. No one will be Superman like Christopher Reeve.
No.
Nope.
Nobody will be
Nope.
Lex Luthor like Gene Hackman. It's just the way it is. Mario Puzo wrote one of the best scripts. You might not have to like everything that, everything. The Godfather is awesome, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But this guy that can write a script like this, and Richard Donner directing it, and the way it's shot, the cinematography, the advancements that were made in making this movie and how it was shown. This isn't the old George Reeves flying across every building from the old TV series we all grew up watching. And it's this was high end. This was fantastic. And it still stands out as, it's a top 10 for me at all time. And that'll never change. The character of Lex Luthor is, Superman's great. It's funny, action adventure. I love the movie. Definitely my favorite action adventure of the 70s.
Excellent. I just say, I'm not going to tell you which ones till I'm up, but you had my 6th and 7th top action adventure movies.
Oh, I
didn't have
did?
it. Yeah, they two that just missed that I strongly considered.
You had my 7th.
There
Oh,
you
did
go.
I?
Yeah. So,
All right,
I have a
Brian, what do
guess.
you have? Let's hear Brian's top 5.
all right. So, one that I had at 6 earlier today, and then I slid it up and I moved some things around a little bit. But I got probably the quintessential, I would say it's quintessential martial arts movie for sure. And it even like heralded in blaxploitation, even in a sense. It's Enter the Dragon. Bruce
Yeah.
Enter the Dragon. I think it's fantastic. The fight choreography in it, of course, it's a little campy in places, and and some of the things you could tell are just ridiculously choreographed and everything. But there's just something about the movie that's so iconic that just led to all the other type of martial art films that would be made in the future. That I just think it was really important. And isn't Jim Kelly? Jim Kelly was in the movie as well. I believe, yeah, he was, because they were talking about the blaxploitation.
Yeah, that's right.
They had nunchucks or something, and he was a big part of the film. So I have that at number 5. I think that's an important film. It definitely carried over for decades to come for how they were going to make martial arts films. Number 4 for me is Dirty Harry. It seemed like again, we're getting into this. The 70s are important, and it seems like every time I start to list a movie, it's important for the types of other movies that come after it. So this is like this cop crime drama stuff.
Right.
You got Harry Callahan, and of course he's hated by his boss, but always gets the job done, and he's going up against the crazy lunatic bad guy. I think the guy in this was called Scorpio, who's shooting people, and he's got a ransom out, saying that they don't pay the ransom, that he's going to kill more people, and there's that element to it. And and of course Harry always just comes to the rescue and does what other cops are not willing to do, which is basically, you get an opportunity to kill the bad guy so he doesn't commit any more crimes, take him out. That's the whole premise of the film. And great one-liners in there that are
fantastic.
Certainly used in ad nauseum when you're having conversations with people about these types of movies, but still, it's iconic. It's an iconic movie. It really set the tone for how crime dramas could be handled with police officers in mind. So
how about that school bus scene too?
Yes,
that's right.
Oh,
that was tense as hell, man.
It's just
big time, man.
It's incredible. Number 3 for me, I put Jaws in this category. I know it could have easily went in horror. It could easily go in suspense, but it really is. It's an action in a lot of ways. To be honest, I love the movie. I've never been a huge fan of Richard Dreyfuss at all as an actor, but still I could tolerate him in this movie just because it's the movie that it is. And I remember the whole one-liner, of course, from it is, we're going to need a bigger boat. I mean, right. I think that's it right there, when he's reaching down, throwing some chub into the water, and then Bruce, I guess Bruce is what they named the shark, comes out of the water a little bit, and that petrified look that he has when he turns back around to look at the captain of the boat. That says it all right there. I think the musical score is great, how they kind of build up the tension by just increasing the pace and the time signature in between the notes. They did a great job of that. So Jaws makes it at number 3 for me.
I think he ad-libbed that line about the bigger boat. Roy Schneider did.
Did he?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Good line.
A great line.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, these are all 3 of these so far all groundbreaking movies
Oh, fantastic.
And they're all groundbreaking movies. So number 2 for me, my first James Bond movie, and I've got The Spy Who Loved Me. It's my favorite James Bond movie. I don't know. I'm still a kid when I saw it. And I still think that Richard Kyle is one of the best villains ever. I mean, speaking of Jaws, right? This is the bad Jaws. He's got all these metal teeth in his mouth. And it just seems like no matter what you do to this guy, he simply won't die.
7 foot tall,
Yes, it's fantastic. And even the bad guy in it's got this great underwater headquarters and stuff.
That's
He's
cool.
trying to get the world to destroy each other, thinking he'll be able to survive underwater.
Yeah.
And it's got the ski chase scene going down the hills.
Awesome.
I mean, who was doing that? I mean, who would come up with a crazy fight scene like that? That's just incredible.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, it's my favorite of the James Bond series. But number one for me has already been mentioned by Doc. I've got Mad Max. I think it's another groundbreaking movie. It's speaking to dystopian type films. It would go on to influence all those types of movies going forward. I think the pace of the way the movie's shot, the alternating pace of the movie, where he creates tension by increasing the action suddenly, and there's a start stop to it, to where you feel like, oh, there's a moment to relax, and he goes right back at it again. And he does it with the filming, he does it with the score. George Miller did an incredible job with this. And you're right, it's really got 3 parts to the movie, and it's like the third part though is just out of this world great. All the great car chasing and explosions and everything. The action's just great in it. I think like you said, Doc, I think it's really the most underrated of all of them. They talked about Road Warrior and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, made all this money at the box office and everything else. But I think this movie was the more important. For me, it's the best action film of the 70s.
Very
good one,
good.
buddy.
Excellent. I can't believe both you guys had that number one. That's fantastic.
Oh, I had number 2.
You had 2. Okay, I'm sorry. You're right.
Soup
Superman was one. How can I forget that? Superman. What did I want to say? Oh, Dirty Harry and Jaws that you had. I have them in other categories down the road.
Okay.
I agree, Rich. So do I.
Of course, they're both action films, but I wanted to slot them in other categories. So I'm going to start with my top 5, and you may not agree that all 5 of these haven't been mentioned yet, and they may be in further categories for you. They may not even be your idea of what an action film is, but they are for me. Number 5 is The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
This is an interesting film shot in New York, a lot of it in the subway. Walter Matthau and Robert Shaw are the 2 leads here. Criminals, Shaw's the head honcho. They take over New York City subway for ransom. They're threatening to shoot a passenger every minute after the first hour is up if they don't get their $1 million. They want it delivered. And it's a very interesting movie. It's got great pacing. The whole thing it flows well. It's got the good tension that you want in a thriller. Solid amount of action. There's a little comedic element thrown in as well. It's a solid cat and mouse movie as far as I'm concerned. And there's an interesting sneeze, which gives away one of the villains at the end of the picture.
Gesundheit.
That leads to the final capture of one of the guys that has eluded them so far. But I always liked the picture. I like it better than the remake that was made in
way better.
Yeah, I didn't like the remake.
Yeah, way better than the.
I watched the remake just to compare it. I kind of knew going in I wasn't going to like it as much, but the original, awesome. Number 4, Escape from Alcatraz.
Nice,
fantastic.
Yeah,
great prison movie, directed by Don Siegel, who I think made 5 or 6 movies with Clint. A great partnership. Takes place in 1962 at maximum security prison, Alcatraz Island. It's just a well-made, masterful storytelling. There's no wasted scenes. Everything connects. It's one of my favorite prison movies up until Shawshank, really. I thought it was one of the best. There's some debate as to whether the escape was a total success or not, because no bodies were ever recovered.
That's right.
Right.
And so they couldn't prove that they got out. None of the guys ever showed up anywhere, and yet they couldn't recover a body in that body of water. I did write down here 5 movies that Siegel and Eastwood paired up on: Coogan's Bluff, 2 Mules for Sister Sarah, The Beguiled, Dirty Harry, and Escape from Alcatraz. So they had a nice little run there. Number 3 is The Getaway from 1972. Steve McQueen and Ali McGraw, directed by Sam Peckinpah. Now, I'm a Steve McQueen fan. I think he's the coolest actor that ever lived. He's just got that sense of coolness about. I like him in everything. Bullet, The Great Escape. You can go right down the list. even the sand pebbles. He's great.
Okay,
And
yeah.
I like this picture. He's recently released. He's an ex-con. Him and his wife are on the run after a botched robbery. Uh, there's car chases. It's got all the elements you want in an action picture. Car chases, extended shootouts. The violence is amped up. It's got Peckinpah directing it. He's just a charismatic bad boy. Pretty much what Steve McQueen played his whole career. I read where originally Peter Bogdanovich was hired to direct this, but he had differences with McQueen. So they brought Sam Peckinpah in, who gave it a little edgier look.
Yeah, you're gonna get that with Peckinpah.
Every time out.
His movies were like mostly violent. I mean, ultra violent.
That's what he was known for, yeah.
That's been done.
And McQueen and Ali McGraw, by the way, began a much publicized romance during the making of this film. Infidelity. They were both married to other people, I believe, and they eventually got married the next year. That made all the headlines back in the rags in the old days. Number 2, Deliverance, starring Burt Reynolds, John Voight, Ned Beatty, and Ronnie Cox. Of course, this has the famous dueling banjo scene with the backwoods people. Basically, it's 4 friends going from the city of Atlanta out for a guy's weekend of canoeing in rural Georgia, these rapids that they encounter. And all of a sudden, they're met by some unfriendly people who don't want them on their turf, people that you would never know exist back there. They live like they're in the 1700s, and there's some violence that takes place. Literally, the crap hits the fan. There's some attacks, some savage attacks, disturbing, barbaric at times. Some unspeakable things happen, especially to Ned Beatty.
Yeah.
These guys are fighting for their lives. It's a survival picture in the end, and I really enjoy it. It's kind of tough to watch in places. It starts out as one thing, and then it just takes a bad turn and goes sideways. Number 1, The French Connection. William Friedkin, director, and Gene Hackman in his Oscar-winning role. This is a real tough, gritty, frenetically paced action movie shot on locations in New York. One of the all-time great chase scenes, some into the subway, and even though it looped a lot, you can watch Hackman's face. He's so intense behind the wheel. He's barely missing women walking their kids in baby strollers, and there's all kinds of stuff going on there. The French Connection, of course, is a reference to the drug smuggling, the narcotics coming in from France. Roy Scheider's good in this movie too. Such an edgy character study, really, of Popeye Doyle. Do I think it was deserving of Best Picture that year? No. I have another movie that I like better, but as an action adventure crime thriller cop movie, it has to take my spot at number 1.
So
getting back to my runners up,
14 different movies.
Yeah, that's like a first for us, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Rich, what was your list really quick? Bring them off fast there.
My honorable mentions, or the ones I had?
No, your 5. Who were your
my
5?
5 were the Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
Okay,
4
just missed for me.
Escape from Alcatraz.
Maybe later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, The Getaway.
Just missed.
Deliverance.
Maybe definitely later.
Definitely later.
The French Connection. I'm sure that's
Definitely later.
Definitely later.
So we have some common ground. I was afraid this was going to happen, that we would be popping in all different categories, but it's all
That's okay.
the eye of the beholder and how we feel about the films, and that's what we try to convey here. Just want to hit on some honorable mentions real quick before we end the segment. Superman was my number 6. The Warriors was my number 7. And I had a film by Spielberg, Duel, number 8.
I've got that later on too.
Okay.
So I had Warriors at number 7. I have 2 of the ones you mentioned later. I also had Death Wish at number 6. And I just for the record, I think Cary Grant is cooler than Steve McQueen.
Okay.
That's just me.
That's a really good debate if you want the truth.
I'm going to leave that one alone, but I respect your opinion. and I like Cary Grant in the movies.
I like Cary Grant too.
He's more of a suave debonair guy. Steve McQueen is the essence of cool, just as far as I'm concerned. But I hear what you're saying. Cary Grant
Yeah,
is.
yeah. I
fantastic.
mean,
Oh
that,
yeah.
Any honorable mentions, Doc, that we want to hit on before we wrap up, or do we hit them all?
No, I mean, you guys kind of covered everything else. I mean, the other ones I have that I switched out of the action adventure, I really honestly put them in different categories that we're going to hear as we move along, to be honest with you.
yeah.
And I just wanted to mention the 3 Bond movies too, because I had them all down here: Live and
Yeah.
Let Die, Moonraker, and The Spy Who Loved Me.
Yeah.
All three,
I liked all of them.
could
Sure,
fit
man.
into
Great
this
entertainment.
category.
Yeah.
So I'm glad, that one of them was mentioned. So that's awesome. So
Very cool.
that's going to wrap up our action adventure. We've got a lot more stuff coming in the next video, so stay with us. We appreciate your comments. Give us a like and thumbs up, and subscribe if you haven't already. Please leave us your comments. Give us your top 5 action adventure movies for the 70s.
Yeah.
Throw in some honorable mentions. We'd love to hear some feedback. Until the next time, for Brian, Doc, I'm Rich, and we will see you in our next video. Take care.